"Ma'am, are you sure you want to go through with this?" Claire paused with the pen hovering just above the paper. The banker's voice was careful, the kind people use when they're trying not to sound judgmental. The office smelled faintly of coffee and old carpet. Outside the window, late afternoon light slanted across the parking lot, catching dust in the air. She didn't answer right away. Her phone buzzed on the desk. A reminder from her calendar. Pick up Ethan at 4:30. She turned the screen face down. "It's an abandoned property," the banker continued. "No inspections for years. The price reflects the risk." Claire looked down at the paperwork again. The address stared back at her like a dare. A stone mansion built in the 1970s, empty for decades, owned by a family that vanished without explanation. She thought of the apartment she was losing, the landlord's polite notice, the way her son had gone quiet when she told him they'd be moving again. "I know what it is," she said finally. Her voice surprised her with how steady it sounded. The banker hesitated. "People in town say." "I know what they say." Claire cut in, not unkindly. Silence stretched between them, the kind that asks a question without words. Was she being reckless or brave, desperate or finally decisive? Claire picked up the pen. Before this story goes any further, take a second to subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. She signed her name. At that moment, Claire believed she was buying a cheap, abandoned mansion, a roof, a chance, a temporary solution. She had no idea she was about to inherit a truth someone had worked very hard to keep buried, and that what the missing family left behind would change her life forever. The mansion sat at the edge of town, where the pavement gave up, and the trees took over. Briar Hollow wasn't big, but it had memory, and memory lingered in places like this. Claire parked the car and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. The house rose in front of her, built of gray stone that had darkened with age. Ivy crept along the walls, thick and stubborn, as if it had been holding the place together by sheer will. Tall windows stared back at her, some cracked, some clouded, all quiet. Ethan leaned forward in his seat. "Is this really it?" "This is it," she said. He didn't sound scared, just curious. That made it harder. They stepped out of the car, gravel crunching underfoot. The air smelled like damp leaves and old wood. Claire unlocked the door with a key that felt heavier than it should have. Inside, the house was cool and still, not abandoned in the way movies showed it. No broken furniture or dramatic decay. It felt paused, as if someone had stepped out and never come back. "This place is huge," Ethan whispered. "It's just rooms," Claire said, though her voice echoed back at her like a question. They chose the living room to set down their bags. Sunlight filtered in through tall windows, catching dust in the air. Claire told herself this was fine, temporary, a stepping stone. But as she stood there, surrounded by someone else's life left behind, she felt it. A quiet sense that this house hadn't been waiting to be bought. It had been waiting to be found. The first night was restless. Claire lay awake on a borrowed mattress, listening to the house settle. Old homes made noise. Pipes clicked, wood shifted. She knew that. Still, every sound felt intentional. Ethan slept beside her, curled on his side, breathing evenly. Claire watched him longer than she meant to. The past few years had asked too much of him. Too many moves. Too many promises she'd made and revised. In the morning, she woke early and walked the halls alone. The mansion was laid out in a way that spoke of privacy and purpose. Rooms weren't just decorative. They had intention. A music room with a piano bench pushed neatly under the keys. A study with shelves that bowed slightly from the weight of old books. The kitchen was spotless, though unused. No dust on the counters. No cobwebs in the corners. Claire frowned at that. Time usually left marks. Later that day, she went into town for supplies. Conversations shifted when she mentioned her address. "You're staying there?" a woman at the hardware store asked, eyebrows lifting. "For now," Claire said. The woman hesitated. "That family, they weren't bad people." "I didn't think they were." "They just knew things," the woman said, then stopped herself. "Be careful." That night, Claire found the first thing that didn't belong. A folder tucked behind cookbooks in the kitchen. Plain, labeled by date. She didn't open it yet. She slid it into a drawer and closed it slowly, like it might make a sound as she rushed. Claire tried to focus on normal things: school paperwork, job applications, painting over water stains. She told herself not to read into coincidences, but the folders kept appearing. Behind the piano bench, inside a hollowed-out book, under a loose floorboard in the study. Each one labeled, each one organized with care. She opened one late one afternoon while Ethan was outside throwing a ball against the garage wall. Inside were typed pages, names, places, incidents. Nothing sensational, just facts, patterns, notes written in the margins in careful handwriting. She felt a tightening in her chest as she read. This wasn't a journal. It wasn't a hobby. It was documentation. Claire learned the missing family's name that day. The Holloways, Walter, Margaret, 2 daughters. The father had been a Navy officer before retiring quietly, the kind of career that didn't invite questions, but also didn't answer them. She closed the folder when Ethan came back inside. That night, she dreamed of doors she couldn't open. Briar Hollow had a way of watching without staring. Claire noticed it when she walked Ethan to school, when she sat alone at the diner, when she introduced herself at the community center where she picked up part-time hours. No one was unkind. They were cautious. An older man nursing coffee one morning finally spoke. That house changes people. Claire met his eyes. I don't believe houses do that. He nodded slowly. People do. At home, the mansion felt heavier now that she knew it held something. The folders multiplied in her mind even when she wasn't looking at them. One evening, as rain hit the windows, the power flickered. Claire lit candles and told Ethan it was an adventure. He smiled, but his eyes kept drifting toward the hallway that led deeper into the house. "Mom," he said quietly, "did they leave on purpose?" Claire thought of the folders, the careful organization, the lack of panic. "I don't think so." Then why didn't they come back? She didn't have an answer. That scared her more than the silence. Later that night, she found the door. It was hidden behind a tall bookcase in the east wing. Not locked, just overlooked. Claire stood there for a long time before opening it. The room was small and windowless, lined wall to wall with shelves. Every shelf was full. Folders, boxes, photographs, cassette tapes, all labeled with dates and locations that stretched across decades. Claire sat on the floor, back against the wall, trying to breathe normally. This was an obsession. It was methodical, purposeful. She realized then that the Holloways hadn't been collecting secrets for themselves. They'd been holding them. Ethan appeared in the doorway, candlelight flickering across his face. "Are we in trouble?" Claire looked at him. He wasn't panicking. He was asking. "No," she said, "but we need to be careful." "Why didn't they tell anyone?" Claire ran a hand through her hair. Maybe they did, and no one listened. That idea settled heavily between them. That night, Claire made a decision she didn't fully understand yet. She wouldn't run. She started reading everything. After Ethan went to bed, Claire sat in the hidden room, sorting through years of quiet documentation. It was a map of misconduct, negligence, and buried accountability. Not dramatic enough to headline. Too complex to explain quickly. The kind of truth that required patience. Claire thought about walking away, about sealing the room and pretending she'd never seen it. But the thought made her chest ache. She reached out to a journalist she'd once volunteered with. Not a famous one, a careful one. They met at a coffee shop outside town. Claire slid a single folder across the table. The journalist read silently, then closed it. "Do you know what this is?" "Yes," Claire said, "and I don't know what to do with it." The journalist studied her. "You're already doing something." That night, Claire noticed a car parked across from a mansion longer than necessary. She turned off the lights early. Pressure didn't come loudly. It crept. The school asked questions about Ethan's address again. The community center cut her hours without explanation. Someone left an unsigned note in her mailbox. "You don't know what you're holding." Claire burned it in the sink. Ethan stopped inviting friends over. "They look at the house like it's listening," he said. "Is it?" Claire asked. He shrugged. "It remembers." She hugged him longer than usual. The journalist called one evening. "We're going to publish," she said, carefully, in parts. Claire closed her eyes. "Do it right." There was a long pause. "You understand this will change things." "Yes," Claire said. "It already has." The first article went live on a quiet Sunday morning. It didn't mention the Holloways, or the mansion, or Claire. It talked about patterns, about service members who raised concerns and were quietly sidelined, about records that surfaced years too late. By Monday, the phone rang. By Tuesday, names were being said out loud again. By Wednesday, Claire found herself standing in the hidden room, holding a box she hadn't opened yet. Inside were letters, and signed, addressed to no one. "We did what we could. We hoped someone would finish this." Claire sat on the floor and cried for the first time since moving in. That night, someone knocked on the door. The man on the porch was older, posture straight despite the years. "My name is Thomas," he said. "I serve with Walter Holloway." Claire stepped aside without speaking. Inside, Thomas moved slowly, respectfully. He recognized the study, the piano. "I thought he chose silence," Thomas said quietly. "I didn't realize he chose patience." Claire handed him a photograph. He closed his eyes. "We failed him," he said. "No," Claire replied. "You're here." Others came after that. Not crowds. Individuals. People who had been waiting for permission to remember. The house filled with low voices and long pauses. Ethan watched from the stairs, learning what integrity looked like when it wasn't loud. The investigation expanded. Official statements followed. Apologies that felt careful. Accountability that arrived late, but arrived. Claire stayed mostly invisible. She declined interviews. Redirected attention. "This isn't about me," she told the journalist. "No," the woman agreed. "It's about stewardship." One evening, Claire stood alone in the hidden room. "You didn't disappear," she said softly. "You entrusted." The house felt different after that. Lighter. Briar Hollow shifted slowly. People waved longer. Conversations deepened. The mansion lost its nickname. Claire started a small fund in the Holloway's name for quiet service. No ceremony. Ethan wrote his school essay about responsibility, not heroes. Years passed. The mansion remained imperfect. So did Claire, but both stood. On quiet nights, she still heard the house settle. Now it felt like rest. A letter arrived with a return address. From the Holloway's youngest daughter. "Thank you for finishing what we couldn't." Claire cried at the kitchen table, the sunlight warm on her hands. Ethan grew taller. The town grew braver. The truth didn't erase the past. It reframed it. Claire never forgot why she bought the mansion. She needed a place to stand. What she found inside reminded her that some legacies aren't inherited by blood, but by choice. Courage doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits quietly, trusting the right person to stay. From which part of the country are you watching this story?